Hello, everyone, and welcome to an opportunity to build knowledge, focusing on veteran and small business owners through information and experiences. I'm your host today, Travis Hunter, Sergeant Major, United States Marine Corps retired. Today, we have a series of speakers that are here to expand your knowledge, and on veteran housing, filing VA claims, and state business opportunities. In a moment, I will introduce our first speaker. But here's something for you. I want you to take some time to pull out a piece of paper if you have it and ask questions. The reason why I say that is because a lot of times we don't want to ask questions. A lot of times we think, hey, someone already has that question, or no one has that question. This is a dumb question. But I'll tell you again that that's not the case. Someone else has that question. Someone else wants to know. So please take the time to ask questions. Definitely. And we are also reviewing the chat. So if you have questions on chat, by all means, do so. All right, so today we have Jane Babcock. I want to tell you a little bit about Jane Babcock. I met her a few days ago, and she coined the name Mom. Through my experiences in the military, as a military veteran, anytime someone calls you Mom, that is an extremely endearing term. Although she's a retired Sergeant First Class, retired CVSO, she has like a wealth of knowledge. And again, she's been coined the name Mom. I sat and spoke to her for about an hour. She gave me knowledge that I had no idea of. She expanded my knowledge. I asked questions about Chapter 35. I asked questions about, filing VA claims, and just opened this information. I really appreciate it, Jane. I want to thank you for that time. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you for the information. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Jane Babcock. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I've been here before, and I'll be back again. Knowing your VA never is a simple thing. Today, I want to talk about, we've covered the fact that in order to start a claim, you can file an intent to file. And people ask, well, what's that? That's actually the beginning of your 1-year clock. It's exactly what it sounds like. A claim to the VA is, in fact, a legal claim for benefits, for financial gain, for medical gain, whatever is necessary for you due to your service-related injuries or illnesses. There are multiple ways to start a claim. You can call the toll-free number Monday through Friday. You can go online if you have a My VA account. You can also go in person to a regional office, or you can go to a local VSO office, and we'll cover it in a little bit. Or you can file the claim in, and it goes to an intake center where they then scan it into the system. But the easiest two ways to do it are through your local VSO, who could do it instantaneously for you, and or through the toll-free number. So once you have filed that intent, you have a 1-year window to file the rest of your claim. But the most important document you can send into the VA or to use for any benefits, whether it's your home loan or education benefits, is to get your DD-214. There's 2 forms. When you left service, they gave you a short form and a long form. It's the same document, except on the bottom of the long form, it shows what type of discharge and what they call the SPIN code, which is basically the reason for the type of discharge you're getting. So that type of discharge is vital in knowing how easy it will be for you to obtain benefits if you are allowed to even apply. And the only time you're not allowed to apply for VA healthcare is if you have a dishonorable discharge. People often think that an other than honorable will stop even VA healthcare, but that's not true. So to get that DD-214, if you don't easily have access to it, you can pay someone to get it for you. You can call the National Archive, or you can get a hold of an accredited VSO representative. And again, we'll cover that in just a few minutes, but that VSO literally could get that document for you in less than business day. So look for your accredited VSOs, and I will share that link in a little bit here. That VSO, can reach out to other states. They can reach out to your county if you registered it and you're still living in the same county. They can reach out to the National Archives. They can even reach out to the branch of service. And if that document is easily transferred electronically, whether it's through a database or through the email, a CVSO obtaining a document from another approved and authorized custodian of documents can stamp that document as a true copy of a custodial document, which will serve you just as well as if that document you were bringing to obtain your benefit was directly from your branch of service. So your CVSO will help you obtain that document. Don't ever pay, don't wait a month or two to get a document. Your CVSO usually can do it within 3 business days, if not sooner. Now, today we want to cover claims and claims evidence. Most people are familiar with the fact that there is compensation for injuries or illnesses from a 0% rating, which is still a rating. If when you get your award letter, it doesn't say denied, then it says 0%. The military and the VA are agreeing that yes, you were damaged in some way, but it's not impacting the quality of your life right now. All the way up to 100% service-connected, disabled, permanent, and total, which means that there is significant detractors for you as far as obtaining employment and things like that. So there's also another type of compensation called individual unemployability, and that means that you are rated at 60 or 70% or greater. 60 if it's one thing, such as, gosh darn, with heart disease for our Agent Orange guys, because 60% heart failure, it's going to be real hard to find a job. Or if you have a combination of things, one of them is 40% or greater, and your combination comes up to 70% by VA math, which is totally not normal math. But if those things apply, then you have individual unemployability, which can be added to your compensation, paying you at the 100% rate. Now, these are great benefits, but there's responsibilities and things that have to be met within that first year. So let's cover evidence. The VA is responsible to reach out for your service treatment records 3 times. If they have never had to request it because you never filed a claim for, and although they're working on a system where it will be electronically transferable to them, that's not everywhere yet. And from what I understand, hasn't been really successful in its efforts. So VA has to ask for those service treatment records 3 times, and then they have to send you a letter saying, we were unsuccessful in obtaining them. Do you have them? Because some people walk out of service with those records, especially Reserve and National Guard members. They also will reach out to your branch of service to obtain your military personnel records, because if you're filing for a presumptive, it may be specific to where you were stationed, such as Camp Lejeune. So they're going to get your personnel record, everything in your record, except for derogatory information. So in other words, it's not going to have a lot of the little bad stuff in it, but if there was in fact a UCMJ brought up against you, then they will have that summary. So be real honest with the VA, because they know the big things. They also may have to request DOD records. A lot of the Vietnam guys or other guys were in areas where they may have been involved in classified missions. And so in Colombia or Cambodia or other places like that. So there aren't real full records of where they were. So they have to go to JRSSC and request verification. Was this unit and this personnel in this country during this time period? And that's all they're going to get is a yes or no. There's not going to be information about the mission. The VA is also responsible for your VA treatment records. So what that means is anything inside the VA healthcare system. There's a wonderful, wonderful benefit we have. Those are called vet centers, and they can provide mental health counseling, but they are not technically part of the VA healthcare system, even though VA does funding and such for them. So if you have vet center records related to your PTSD, you need to make sure that either you go and get a copy or that you signed a release to allow them to send them to the VA. The VA will not pay for civilian records. Vet centers will provide them free, but a lot of civilian hospitals will charge. So if you mentioned in your claim that you went to the chiropractor at ABC Health Center and the VA calls them and they say, oh, well, yes, but we charge 10 cents a page or something like that for those records, the VA will not pay for those. So I always told my veterans, please just go get any military or civilian records that you have out there. Now, unfortunately, civilian records have a 7-year lifespan. So a lot of facilities will get rid of those records after 7 years. So even if you go back to look for them, you may not be able to find them, but there are substitute records and evidence you can provide. Your responsibility in this VA evidence portion is your medical records, both your military records if the VA can't find them, and your civilian medical records. Also, you need to provide marriage certificate, birth certificate. If you were previously divorced, in order to show that the current marriage is legitimate, you need to provide that. And if you have any children that were permanently disabled and unable to self-support before their 18th birthday, that child can stay on your VA claim for their entire life, unless they marry. So that's real important, especially when it comes to things like education benefits, CHAMP VA healthcare, and other things that come along with being 100% or individually unemployable. I talked about the fact that there's optional type evidence that you can provide when you can't find either civilian records or your military records were incomplete because your injury may have happened when you were on a convoy and it never got put into your official record. So your personal statement, and some CVSOs don't feel these are necessary, but anytime I had a claim that was not really absolutely in their face obvious, I would ask my veteran to write a statement. Basically, I, John Smith, am filing for this condition based on the events in April of 2004 when I was at Camp Taji and we did a convoy and I jumped off the back of the deuce and a half, twisted my ankle, wrapped 100-mile-an-hour tape around my sock, continued the convoy, and later when I cut the sock off, 2 days later, it was purple. So that's an initial injury, and you can provide your statement explaining it. Basically, the way I looked at that was you were leading the VSO right down the path of logic to the award of your benefit. So to back that up, you can get buddy statements in lieu of your service treatment records, your military personnel records, your VA treatment record. Basically, these are going to be witness statements. I'm PFC Snuffy, and I was with John Smith when he jumped off the back of the deuce and a half in April outside Camp Taji, and these are the best, to the best of my memory, these are the things that I saw. Or I was in the TOC 2 days later when he came in to borrow scissors and cut his sock off and his ankle was purple. Do you see where that replaces your service treatment records? I mean, in the military, we're taught, don't bother going on sick call. They're just going to give you Motrin and ice packs. Well, if you did that for yourself, but other people saw it, they're going to be able to substantiate that evidence for you or that incident for you. So it needs to say, to the best of my memory, because after all, your date of when it happened and their memory of it may not coincide exactly. But if they're within a month or two of each other, the VA is going to say, okay, it's reasonable that somebody doesn't remember whether it was March or April. But the year is real important, or the time frame, or it was Christmas time in 2004. That way it kind of matches up enough that the VA can say this is a reasonable match. And then, of course, their contact information, their signature, and their date on that document. So it's basically a testament to those events and what they saw or how those events impacted you. That's real important. There is a benefit called wartime pension. And this is probably the most underused, underknown in my 11 and a half years as a nationally accredited CVSO. I only had one veteran ever say to me, yes, I know there is a pension. He didn't know how it worked, but he knew it existed. And this is an income-based program. There is no reason for any veteran and or their surviving families to ever live below poverty when, if that veteran served one day during wartime, and I mean federal duty, they can't be reserve duty, guard duty, state duty. It has to be federal duty time. So this thing, again, VA is responsible for trying to obtain your military records and your treatment records, because the youngest person I put on that benefit was 21 years old. So we had already filed a claim for compensation, but we knew it was going to come back, 10, 20% type of thing. But the VA has what's called a duty to assist. So they will seek those treatment records and look through those treatment records to see if there's some root cause in the service for the disability that now has you unable to work. This particular young man had been in a motorcycle accident after being discharged from service, had a major TBI and compression injury to his entire spine. But because he was enrolled in VA, we did the community care through the integrated care system. VA paid all of his medical bills locally until he was stable almost 2 months later. And then they took him down to the spinal center at the VA in Milwaukee. And he learned how to walk again and all that. But those treatment records, they would have looked in and said, well, is there any reason for the root cause of his disability to be service related? If so, then it would have been compensation claim. In this case, obviously not. So they checked everything that they needed to check, their local VA treatment records and things like that. Again, they will not pay for civilian records. So if you're going to be 21 or 41, had been in a severe accident or developed a condition not listed as a presumptive and not known to be related to your military occupation or exposures in service, that wartime pension, in this young man's case, he was going to receive $850 a month from Social Security. He didn't qualify for disability because he didn't have 40 quarters of employment. So he was getting SSI, $850 a month. Obviously, you can't live on that. So the VA pension system looked at him and went, yep, you qualify for pension. You also qualify for aid and attendance, which is a benefit added on to pension when someone is unable to take care of themselves. And then he received $950 additional dollars from the VA pension. So his responsibility, or in this case, mine and his family's, was to gather all the financial information, his assets information, which assets do not include the house, the car, or the personal belongings. Any dependency records, if he was married then, no. But if he got married or had children, then dependency records would apply. And medical records, especially if it's based on age, being under 65. A veteran over 65 does not have to have any disabilities. They just have to be living on a low fixed income. So this can stop a lot of our older guys from having to work. If their Social Security plus the pension money, which could be $35 a month or could be almost $1,800 a month, depending on their health, prevents them from having to work. That would be great. This is why it's so important for our guys that are either homeless or at risk. The VA wants to make sure that they're not living below poverty. Veterans at 130% poverty, surviving dependents at poverty level, they will increase. And this is based on income minus medical expenses. So you can see we're gathering all those medical records or medical receipts from the pharmacy, even toothpaste and Band-Aids and things can be accounted for. So if they're using protective undergarments, it's amazing how expensive those things are. This will help them gain a higher pension level, but it's a joint effort of the VA and yourselves for getting it. So those additional evidentiary things are necessary for anybody filing those two major claims. All the other VA benefits do not require those types of service records or medical records, but they do require the DD-214, and they require basic information. The family can file for headstones and all that stuff as long as they have a DD-214. You can apply for VA healthcare as long as you have that. But if your income is significant, then you want to list, and they don't ask you for proof unless you get audited, which is kind of like the IRS. Chances are pretty darn slim. They will take your honest word for your medical expenses, because even for VA healthcare, if they take your total household income, subtract off your total household medical expenses, because it may be your spouse with significant bills, and then what you're living on is what they're going to base VA healthcare and or whether or not you pay copays, unless you are service connected. In other words, receiving compensation or receiving wartime veterans pension. For a pensioner, there is no copay, and you are absolutely 100% eligible for all services, including hearing aids. If you are receiving compensation and you are rated at 0, you can be making $500,000 a year, but you have a service-connected disability, even though it's rated at 0. If you are rated at 50% or greater, you receive everything for free inside the VA. Anything that you're service connected for, if you do pay copays, you will not pay copay for if it's service connected. So that's why all those little things can mean so much in filing those claims. I'm happy to share links and attachments to the tools I use to teach about these benefits and other benefits and how to find your VSO that will help you. The best thing is to get help. Never fight the VA. Don't go to court alone. So, Trevelus, is there anything else that you have questions about?
Awesome. Thank you, Jane. Yes, I actually do have some questions. First, I want to ask in the audience here, does anyone have any questions at all for Jane? All right, so Jane, I have 2 questions. I want to thank you again. I can't emphasize how much you've helped me so far, and I'm going to keep you in my pocket, so to speak. I don't know how that sounds. I'm keeping you in my pocket because I would definitely want to keep in touch with you. I have a lot of questions about VA benefits. So here's one. Can you explain the order of use of VA educational benefits? Here's an example. You have your GI Bill, you have your Cal Vets, your California Veterans education benefits, and you also have Your chapter 35. Can you explain the order of use for that? And here's one more example for you. If I've given my children my GI Bill, my post 9/11 GI Bill, and now I'm retiring from the military and I want to use education benefits, do I have to pull that back from them, or is there another method in how to use my education benefits, and what order do I use them in?
Okay. Well, depending on the state you decide to make your LZ, your landing zone,
Mhm.
you may have benefits through the state for not only yourself, but for your children.
Okay.
And so if you've used your federal GI Bill while you're in service, or you've given it to a child that's already graduated college and whatever, while you were in service, you're going to come out and you're not going to have a GI Bill.
Right.
But your other children in the state of Wisconsin, and I know there's a similar program in California, but I don't know the precise rules.
Mhm.
Here in Wisconsin, a veteran that's rated 30% or greater opens the door to both their children and their spouse receiving free tuition at any state university or state technical school. So being active duty, you may be able to keep your whatever you have left on your GI Bill and go ahead and let them use the state benefit. The state generally will look and say, okay, you veteran, do you have any federal GI Bill money left? You need to use that first, which is actually advantageous because you have book allowance and housing and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But here in Wisconsin, as soon as you run out of that, we're going to turn around and help you finish off up to 128 credits. And we're going to allow your spouse to have the GI Bill until 10 years after the last child turns 18. Or if you say you're in your 40s and you've just gotten it and your children are grown and gone, whether they walked out at 18 or went to school, and now your spouse wants to use it and you've just gotten your rating at 30%, she now has 10 years to use that.
Okay.
So there's all these different variations based on each state. Some states, one state I know of only gives like $100 a semester toward books, and that's it. So you as a veteran, though, also have a couple different options. You have your federal GI Bill. You also have VA's vocational readiness vocational readiness and employment or something. It's VR&E.
Okay. You write that
And
down.
so if you have a 10% rating and that's interfering with your ability to work, i.e., you were a truck driver and then you got type 2 diabetes, you can't drive long haul. You're not going to get that CDL on the civilian side of the house. So that's an impediment to employment. So the VA will then use voc rehab. They too will look and say, are you going to go to school? You still have a year left of your federal GI Bill. We're going to have you sign that off. And then the voc rehab people are going to take over. But the good thing there is those second, third, fourth year of college, they're also going to give you a housing allowance and things like that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So each one looks at, okay, do we need you to sign off on this? Do you need to use this first, then come to us? So it's a back and forth kind of thing.
Okay.
In this case, sounds like your children should qualify for state benefits.
Mhm.
You also need to look in some states that requires you be home of record. In other words, you paid taxes to that state or you entered service from that state.
Right, like Texas.
Right. And that can be tricky. I lived on the east side of the Mississippi River in a town called La Crosse when I first enlisted. But I actually processed through the MEPS in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So initially, my paperwork showed me as a Minnesota home of record. So I had to show the state that no, in fact, I was home of record here in Wisconsin. Here's the documentation. Here's the address on my initial contract. And they went, oh, okay. So then I got my home of record education benefits right away as soon as I got home.
Okay.
So, paperwork, but everything runs on paper in DC.
So thank you, Jane. So I have a follow-up question for that. And my second question, we're not there yet, but I do have, so two more questions. Follow-on question for that. So this is a little more personal. Um, my spouse, my wife is a retired veteran. She's 100%. And I'll be a retired veteran. I am a retired veteran, and whatever percentage I get, hopefully it's above 30. Can I use her Chapter 35 and she use mine for education benefits?
Depending on again, whether or not you still have benefits available, whether or not you qualify for VR&E, and then yes, you qualify for the Chapter 35. Married couples that are both military and both rated and or both in the military, veterans and qualifying for pension, do receive slightly larger benefit. So yeah, you have several paths.
And I'm looking for all those options, all those whatever is out there. I want to take advantage of it. And that's honestly why we're here. So here's my final question, Jane. So I don't actually retire till January 31st. I get my DD 214 tomorrow, right? I get my DD 214 tomorrow, and I retire January 31st. I finished my last VA appointment on Monday. Finished my last VA appointment on Monday. What is my next steps? Just from recommendations for you, what would be my next steps in engaging with the VA? Did my last appointment. I don't get my DD 214 until tomorrow. I want to make sure that the processes are clear. Nothing's left out. No, that just administrative processes are correct. I understand that there's always people on the other end. There's human beings on the other end, and maybe there's something I should submit. Maybe it's something I should follow up on, or something to that effect. So my question for you is, what are my next steps?
Well, fortunately for you, you're coming out of the service in the time period where the VA and the branches of service have a strong relationship. In that, when I came out of service, VA didn't know I existed till 4 years later when I finally went into VA and said, hey, you actually are going to get telephone calls from the Department of Veterans Affairs over that first year. They're going to call you a minimum of 2 times to make sure that you're aware of your benefits, that you are enrolled in VA healthcare, that you don't need them as far as compensation or pension or something like that. So they're reaching out to you guys.
Okay.
Something unheard of in the past. But that also means that since that relationship is already there, you could actually call if you know where you're going to land, you can get a hold of the local VSO, whether it's a veterans service organization, because you're near a regional office, or whether it's a state or county veterans service officer. Those VSOs can explain what you need to bring into their office. They can set up your appointment and everything else. I recommend you take your spouse with you. And the reason I say that is because spouses often listen more intently
yes.
than the person just leaving service. So, and of course, they're highly aware of what's coming for their children and stuff. Mm-hmm. So if your spouse weren't a veteran, weren't already rated and things like that. So, but that VSO rep is more than likely a veteran. Here in Wisconsin, it's mandatory to be a veteran in order to be the head of the county office. And most CVSOs, county level veteran service officers in our state, are veterans. So that helps keep that relationship going. But because they're CVSOs, they have been to training, they have taken a 4-hour test, they attend annual training every year, either at the state or national level, and they sign an ethics statement with the Department of Veterans Affairs saying, I've got the training and the certification, I am going to go ahead and represent veterans for free. I will not charge for my services. And then
that's great.
Yeah, it's not like these lawyers and everything else you see for the Camp Lejeune thing. That can be so misleading and all these financial guys, oh, we'll help you arrange your finances for retirement. And the next thing you know, they've locked you into some kind of account that's actually going to prevent you from qualifying for benefits unless you have a service-related injury illness. And even then, later in life, you may not be able to get that money back out if you need it at the time that you need it. So please be careful of any of these advertised veteran organizations. Granted, there are some wonderful ones out there. One of the lawyers I had to use for an appeal, she did national training at our national organization every year. And she actually won a brain cancer Vietnam case. And that was 6-7 years ago, way before the PAC Act.
Wow.
And it's still not a presumptive for the Vietnam guys, even though they're exposed to the same carcinogens that us younger ones that were potentially exposed to. So there's some really great ones, but there's some real predatory ones out there. So if you're getting ready to ask for help with any of your VA stuff, always ask, is this person accredited? Are you accredited with the VA? Do you have access to the VA's claims network? Because that allowed, as a CVSO, I had a Vietnam guy, they kept denying him, he came to me. I said, well, let me go through your records inside the VA's computer. And I, got his authorized permission signature saying I could look at his records. And I went in and looked at him, and I found the one half-page sick call slip that showed he had been transferred to another ship for 24 hours to be put on IVs. And that ship was in the blue water. His wasn't, but that ship was. So there was his exposure to Agent Orange and the reason he'd had 2 cancers and now diagnosed with a neurological condition. But the VA had denied him all these years. So that one piece of paper meant a lot.
That's great. Thank you so much. And I can't emphasize, I keep saying this over and over again because it's a wealth of knowledge. It's a lot of help. So thank you, James, so much. I really appreciate you. And hopefully I would love to stay in touch. I'll be sending you texts or emails or messages or calls and asking, just to pull your brain, pick your brain and get knowledge from you. So again, I say thank you. You have a great day.
You too. Take care, everyone. God bless.
Bless. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce our next speakers. There's Darren Hendon and Stephanie Taylor. What we need in the civilian community and also in the military, as veterans, we need people that are passionate in what they do, passionate and caring about what goes on with veterans after they transition out of the military. For Darren, I had a chance to speak to Darren, and he's a former homeless veteran. He started a business just to that fact that assisting veterans in not being homeless, making sure the information is out there, making sure the assistance is out there, making sure the resources are understood. There's no reason for veterans to be homeless other than not having the knowledge, not having the resources, not having the information. And then we have Stephanie Taylor, where has direct communication or has direct influence and a relationship with her brother. Obviously, it's definitely direct relationship with her brother. And being able to see his transition out of the military, his transition, his actions, his need for just veterans assistance and it not being there, or it's being there but not being as close and as at hand as we need it. That's passion. That's what introduces passion, and that's why these two individuals, Darren Hendon and Stephanie Taylor, has come here to just help us expand our knowledge in ensuring military veterans are not homeless. So without further ado, Darren and Stephanie, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Darren Hendon, and I'm the founder and executive director of Veteran Social Services. And I'm a former homeless veteran. I got out of the military, out of the United States Army in 1988. And I just kind of fumbled through. Not only did I was trying to fumble through and trying to figure things out, but I suffer from alcoholism and drug addiction. And I've suffered 2 relapses in the past 34 years, and I'll be celebrating 20 years of sobriety in a couple of months. And through my my work experience, I found myself homeless. And I say today that homelessness and veterans should never ever be used in the same sentence. And I went back to school, I got involved in voc rehab, I got my service connected disability, and I found my passion of working with veterans, helping them enroll into school, helping them with their benefits. And I just found a purpose, that there were a lot of veterans who were just like me at one time who just needed someone to guide them. And I just found a purpose. And in 2018, I started Veteran Social Services. And people ask me, how did you get the name? And I just thought, well, what I wanted to provide was Veteran Social Services. So I registered the name with the state. Fortunately, it was available, and I was able to obtain the name. But we started in 2018, and what I realized was that through the agencies that I work with, that a lot of the agencies that supported veterans hired people that could not identify with me. And because I was a veteran, I was pretty successful in connecting with the veterans. I worked as a case manager for supportive services for veterans and families for 6 years. And I was pretty successful in getting them housed and just being able to relate to them. So when I started Veteran Social Services, I wanted to create an atmosphere of other veterans supporting other veterans, because we can communicate with another veteran better than anyone else, and then they receive that information. So I just wanted to provide that support, because when you're in the military, you have that community. When you leave the military, you're kind of solo, and unless you have family to support you for 6 to 8 months before you become gainfully employed, you're kind of isolated. You're kind of on your own. You're kind of trying to figure out, where do I go to get the information that I need to get me to the next step? And that's what Veteran Social Services is. We provide full wraparound services. Within our mission, we provide case management, employment, vocational and education benefits, peer support, and probably one of the most important is our mental health. We want to get the problem in the very beginning. We want to reach veterans when they come out of the military, because that is a crucial point of that navigation of finding the resources. Veteran Social Services wants to reach to the military installations for when veterans come out, and to be able to kind of be a soft handoff for when they become civilians. Like myself, I went through the gamut of working for someone else and felt that, you know what? Yes, veterans do make good employees, but if you give them the resources and you give them the information, we make great leaders, and we can start our own businesses, and we can lead other veterans and be an employer rather than necessarily employees. And our mental health support is probably the most passionate program that we have within our agency, besides our peer support working with us. When we house a veteran, we don't pat ourselves on the back of getting a veteran from homelessness to permanent housing. We actually follow up. Once we get them permanently housed, we follow up with them on a monthly basis to do wellness checks on them and to support them mentally. And so they don't lose that connection that they had when they were probably in interim housing. So there's just been no direction after active duty. Many people who go to the military, sometimes they leave dysfunctional situations, and when they get back, usually 9 times out of 10, that dysfunctional situation is still waiting there. So they don't have that family support that is very much needed So we, as a veteran service agency, want to commit that training or that community spirit that they once had when they served in active duty. Retraining for civilian jobs, and more importantly, just the support from the veteran community. Now, all I had was a vision of what I wanted, but I found someone who actually brought my vision to life, and that is my Chief Operations Officer, Stephanie Taylor. So I'd like to introduce to you the person who has brought the vision of veteran social services to active implementation of providing the services. So I'd like to introduce my Chief Operations Officer, Stephanie Taylor.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Stephanie Taylor, and I'm sure you guys are probably wondering how this mother of 6, grandmother of 2, became Veteran Social Services Chief Operating Officer. It was COVID. It was COVID that brought me here. Mr. Hendon had this 16-room facility full of veterans, and because during this time of the early part of 2020, everything as far as the social services were a little unstable and a little unsecure, and he said he needed help. And since I had worked in social services for a little bit, I was a little business savvy. I said, sure, I can help you with your nonprofit. I had no idea. I had no idea about a nonprofit, didn't understand the intricacies of it. I was a little lost because I knew about backpacks in September and turkeys and toy drives, but I didn't understand the concept. And so what I did was I got on the internet and started researching, right? And then I got some books and I started deep diving into what makes a nonprofit successful. And the most interesting thing that I discovered that it's just a charitable business. So it is not that hard as I thought it was. And then I discovered that with 6 kids, I had been running my own nonprofit for about 25 years. Children are your participants. There's these, Christmas gifts and these cards with money in it for our grandparents who donate monies. And so doing it for 20 plus years, I knew what I was doing. I just had to run it like I did at my own home. And so my next step was to understand the population and the area. Because the founder is from Los Angeles, that was our chosen place to start. And I started to research Los Angeles County and the city of Los Angeles homeless history. And very fascinating. And I think the biggest discovery that I was not aware of was the Los Angeles County homeless veteran issue. I'd never heard of veteran row and the VA in that complex situation. And it's worth diving into and really looking at it, but I will digress on that. And I will discuss as I was working at 25th Street. And there were 16 veterans with all different type of personalities, all walks of life, all colors. The age gap was like from 20 to about 60 or 70. And I was just listening to what it was that they needed. And because we had zero funding, these veterans that were placed in our care during COVID, they were being funded by other larger organizations. And so the larger organization was providing the temporary housing. And because we were kind of new in what it was that we were doing, this gave us the opportunity to provide the services that was so desperately needed. And being the civilian that I am and, listening to the veterans talk, because they have their own language. And oftentimes when I would try to impose the way I viewed it, they would say, you don't understand because you're not a veteran. And I was like, okay, but after a while, I gained their trust, day in and day out. COVID will turn you into a place of therapy. And they started talking about the nuances of this and speaking to their civilian case managers and listening to the veterans. I saw this disconnect. But the most interesting thing was the story that they were now telling about their situation was very common. I was familiar. I remember hearing some of the issues that they were having. And it was because of this guy right here, this distinguished gentleman. This is my brother, Jason Anthony Collins. I'm going to try not to cry. He's a 26-year Air Force veteran, E6, and he is my hero. Now, what you're seeing in this picture is 3 generations of veterans. His grandfather, Ernest Collins, is a World War II veteran. His father is a Vietnam veteran. And then you have my brother who did his tour in Afghanistan and Iraq. What's only missing from this is my mother's father, who was a Korean War veteran. So the military got some very prestigious pedigree right here through my brother, Jason. And that little girl in the picture is me. And I do believe that I prepared him for active duty because he was taking care of the monsters in the closets and also underneath my bed, because I felt if they were going to take one of us, they were going to take him. And I was going to tell my mother, he fought the good fight, but the monsters got him because I had the nerve to be bad and scared. I couldn't pick a struggle, but he was always there for me. And those are his 2 children, Desmond, who is autistic, and his daughter, Carly, who I call Baby Carly. Even though she's a sophomore, she will always be Baby Carly to me. And when my brother went into the military, because that's what he was going to do, and when he came out, he was just a little different. And I didn't understand because I watch a little C-SPAN, I see these veteran affair budgets, and I was just like, well, brother, all you have to do is just, go to the VA, go to the clinic, go do this and go do that. And he was telling me, you don't understand. You're not a veteran. You don't understand. And I was like one of those, all you have to do civilians, because we think that we know what our veterans need. We celebrate it on November 11th. Every year we take the pictures and we do the clapping, but there was something a little bit more in depth that I didn't understand. And so I connect the 2, the stories that these different walks and ages and people that had the same story as my brother. And even though my brother will never be homeless, it was very important that I treat every veteran that comes through Veteran Social Services. I make sure that I look at them as my brother, right? Because this is something that is very, very endearing to me. And my brother was so proud while he was in the military. I mean, he's in Air Force, and apparently that's like the cool part of the military, to be in the Air Force. And he served 26 years. I know some people are, in this room are giving me a little look, but that's okay. And so when I started planning out, as Darren said, our services, we have housing, we have peer support, and peer support, awesome. I love it. It is the battle buddy. And I didn't realize how important it is for veterans to speak to veterans in the way that Al speaks to me or anyone else. I get it. And so when you have a veteran speaking to a veteran and encourage them, it is very relatable to them. And, we have our EVE, that is our employment and vocational and education, mental health. Mental health is so, so important. It's one of the most important foundations in the success of a lot of our homeless veterans. So when I was listening to the veterans and also listening to some other advocacies when it comes to women veterans, and I had no idea about the circumstances that were there either. And so I started to think like there has to be a better way. I need to figure out how there could be a better way because I don't believe that the system is broken. I think that it's misunderstood or maybe mismanaged because the system makes sense. This is why they keep on trying to do this particular system to try to get them from homelessness to permanent housing. And there's the job aspect of it that needs to play into that. But without that mental health along the way, this is why we have a lot of the chronic homelessness, even with the veterans, right? So as I worked at 25th Street, this is where we did a lot of our projects and see what was working. And as you can see, there's all these various personalities. Some of them had some residential restrictions as where they could live. Some of them were on parole. And this was a great place for the parole officers to call us and ask, have you seen such and such? They're in their room. Darren would go knock. And before you know it, the communication was there. And so it was hardly ever broken. So this is what made this whole at 25th Street pretty successful and what I believe to have been. So after COVID, as we all know, there was this time frame where it was very questionable, like what's going to happen, especially in Los Angeles County, where there had this moratorium that was coming and was, pushed out. We still have homeless people in various areas that the count was kind of off. And there's this pig count that they do in January. And then there was also a brand new mayor coming in, and one of Los Angeles's more darkest times, right? Because of the deaths of COVID, people not being able to work, more people becoming homeless. Our phones are kind of ringing a lot. We don't have the funding to provide for our veterans. We're trying to get them in other organizations, and their funding was a little tight as well. And so when Mayor Bass came in, she had this Inside Safe initiative, and us being a smaller organization, we were wanting to get ahead of it because we had this brilliant idea about what we can do and how we can do provide the services. And it was very, very difficult to get into the door. LASA does a lot of the provisional services and picking them. And so LASA's kind of like that rich auntie that has their preferred nieces and nephews. And we was just trying to get, invited to the cookout, and it was very complicated. So me and Darren decided, well, let's just go on our own and do this really nice Inside Safe plan and put some implementation, put a project together. And then we had gotten this phone call from a gentleman named Neil Patel. And Darren had been corresponding with him and already had a relationship with them because he was in recuperative care. And so he said, hey, y'all, what are you guys going to do? And so we told him our plans, what we would like to do. And he said, well, I know a couple of motel hotel owners. I can introduce you to them. And so that got us into thinking along the lines of the motel to interim housing plan that was already in the works and in the talks. And because Mayor Karen Bass had a very, very large project ahead of her, she was trying to work it out with the motel owners to use some of the rooms to house the encampments and the ones that were unsheltered. And I wouldn't say unfortunately, but as of October, there were about 1,600 people that were removed from encampments and put into and became sheltered. Out of the 1,682 Inside Safe participants, 190 of them found a permanent place to live. Now, it was brought out in this article. It was a professor named Greg Colburn. He's a University of Washington real estate professor. And he had said that currently there was 46,000 Angelenos living in cars, tents, makeshift shelters. And Mayor Bass had promised in her first year that she was going to find housing for 17,000 in her first year. Her first year, it was December when she became mayor. And so we're about 2 weeks away, and we're hoping that we can make it in some miracle. But the unfortunate part about that is there's not enough inventory for permanent house. So once you put them in these motels, once you put them in a shelter of some sort, what next? There is this timeline that is understood that 60, 90 to 120 days. We have to find them, jobs, right? To stabilize their income, right? And then we need to find a place that they can afford to give them the keys to a door and some windows. Now, we know it's next to impossible to take someone from the street, find them a job, put them in permanent housing, because there is a foundation that is so necessary, and with our veterans as well. And that's that mental health. You cannot give someone who was on the street, unhoused, living in domestic violence situations, living with family that barely even likes them, and then think that they're going to be able to maintain this without helping them mentally and supporting them mentally. My brother, again, I hope I don't sound like this talk show personnel who always talked about her father, my father. But my brother helped me to understand a lot of different things when it comes to a veteran's mental health, that because they were taught and designed to be so strong, because, they are the solution to the civilian problems. They protect us, they serve us, X, Y, and Z. For them to ask for help is a little complex. So what we had decided to do was create our own version of motel to interim housing. The awesome thing about these owners of these motels is they are part of the community, and they wanted to be part of the solution. But what they did not want to do is give up something that they themselves worked so hard for. So if we as an organization was going to take over their property that was part of their generational wealth, then they wanted it to be respected. We understood that. And we said, yes, we do. We want to put women and children, with or without children, and the LGBTQ community, so that they can have a safe place to build, right? And so he said, Rocky Patel, he said, I would love to get behind you guys, and then introduce us to some other Patels. The Patel dynasty is an awesome history, and I recommend anybody go and look at the videos and the documentaries about the Patels and how they came to the United States, and they worked close together. There's some of these Patels who have been there since gangs, the drug epidemic, and are still there. And they're very proud of what it is that they built. And we want to work within that community, right? And then because of the evictions and being backlogged, and most of the people who are still fighting evictions, most of them are families. Most of them are families with children. So there's going to be another wave of unhoused families. And this particular property is in Van Nuys. Big enough, rooms huge, it's beautiful. And each and every location, we have on-site services, just like we do for our veterans at 25th Street. We understood that when you have unhoused people, or people who were once living on the street, they get ghost. But if you can have them have the services on site, you can manage them a whole lot better. And with the community being part of the solution, if the property is respected, then there are about 19,000 motels, and there are small businesses. These motels are mom and pops, and they would love to participate in the interim housing because they don't want to see homeless people either. We have empty rooms at 25th Street right now for our veterans. And speaking of empty places, the shelter. The shelter is in Los Angeles and it is empty. And when me and Darren went to go see the facility and they opened it up and we saw it, nice. It's actually almost, move-in ready, and there's a commercial kitchen. And so we decided to go across the street because there was this well-known chicken place that I had never been to. And while I was sitting in the car, a man came up to me, and the area is a little tricky. And so he just said, "I don't want any money. I just want some food. My wife is recovering from the hospital and we're homeless." And I was thinking, like, there's a whole commercial kitchen right across the street. This man has no business begging for food. And so I told Darren, we need to get on this. We need to find a place and we can meet them where they're at. And the shelter was going to be an awesome place. And hopefully Karen or those who are in Los Angeles can reach out to us so that we can actually, not only just for our veterans, because Al said it has to be a team effort, the civilians and the veterans. It has to be that way, because when you have everyone receiving services, then the solution, it becomes smaller. And with Veteran Social Services, this allows us to do that. Right? So I'm going to go into these pretty quick. We have our EVE, and we have this great MOU with LA Trade Tech. LA Trade Tech is awesome, and I'm very excited about that up and coming rollout and what it's going to provide for not only our veterans. Hi, Cookie. She works at the Veteran Resource Center at LA Trade Tech. She is awesome. And not to mention, Darren Hendon and Veteran Social Services is the first and only nonprofit veteran service agency and in the state of California. This is really, really awesome. As you can see, these, in order to have it in VSA, these are the things that you have to already be providing. And we just so happen to already be providing that. And Darren was vetted. And what does that mean with this awesome first and only certification in the state of California? We don't know yet. Okay, since we're the one and only, we're working really close with the DGS to kind of develop this. There is just so many things that can now happen, especially with LA's a homeless epidemic, LA's homeless veteran crisis, and all throughout the whole entire state of California. We have for-profits that we could possibly provide the training for, and the veterans that are the for-profits and have contracts with the state can hire our veterans. So now we have an actual connection and a solution for both places, our low-income veterans who need training and our other veterans who have jobs to hire those veterans. And then that way we can keep our peer support specialists engaged and really develop out California and change how we treat and handle veterans with small businesses, which Darren is a very large advocate for entrepreneurship, and working with the state, with the other veteran companies. And Al said, if you guys have anything that you need, check with our veterans first. And so I go to him and ask him, we have this, how can we use some of the veterans to contract this work for us? So I just think that this is going to be an awesome opportunity, especially with the first and only issued in VSA. So that's just about it. I would like to thank my family and all of our friends for watching. Thank you for your support, and everyone who donated to my birthday fundraiser. I turned 51 yesterday. So thank you guys so much. And thank you for giving us the opportunity. And okay, so I guess I'm gonna stand.
Yeah, I like you to stand up. I may not be on the screen, but I just have a couple of questions I'd like you to stay on the screen instead of me staying there and asking me the questions. So I do have a few questions for you. One of them is a personal question. I want some chicken. You mentioned about the chicken place. I want to know what it is. But the first one is as a retired sergeant major, my experiences with dealing with, and it's part of the negative part of the job. My experiences with dealing with service members where they're maybe less than 2 years in the military, or even beyond that, having to separate them out of the military for adverse reasons, for drugs, for selling or doing drugs, for just adverse actions, that are unbecoming of military service. What is it that you do for those individuals? Maybe they didn't get a DD-214, or maybe they didn't have a honorable service, or their characterization of services is dishonorable, or something to that effect. Do you assist them as well? And if so,
yeah, so there is a large population, and that is one of the underserved veteran population that I wanted to serve. As a case manager, I ran across a lot who had a discharge of less than honorable. What I found was many of them suffer from anxiety, suffer from severe depression, drugs and alcohol, which led to drugs and alcohol. So what I want to do as a veteran is to let them know that I respect you as a veteran, even though you may have been talked to because of your circumstances that you're not worthy of. So that is probably the first thing that I want to inform them, that I respect them as a veteran, and to understand the circumstances, because I no longer wanted to be in the military when my father got killed. And I suffer from severe depression because of that. So because I could relate to that, there is a lot of veterans who have less than honorable discharges. And hey, let's see if we can get that upgraded so you can get the VA benefits to become VA healthcare eligible, because you can't receive a VASH voucher without being VA healthcare eligible. So that is just one of the things, one of the population, and there's a huge number of veterans who are out there who served, who may have received an honorable discharge for 4 years, re-upped, and then got a dishonorable discharge that second. And then they go to the VA and the VA denied them service. Well, we worked with a legal organization that found out, well, why would you discount the first 4 honorable years that they served? So they should be eligible. So that type of advocacy for veterans has been needed, is needed, and that's what we fight for.
thank you. That eases some of the stressors. If I would have known about this in the past, I could have, helped those young men and women towards your direction, because you wonder, you take their ID and you put them on the outside of the gate and you say, figure it out. And we're still in the military, not really sure of the programs and the resources that are out there. So that's one thing, just recommendation for you is making sure your organization is known within the military also. So when they get to that transition, not just after the fact, but when they get to that transitional point, hey, here's a card for you, not just give me your ID and get out.
Right. One of the things that we did to reach into the military is that we're registered on MilConnect. We're registered on MilConnect as a service provider. So when veterans are exiting, are going through that process of transitioning from military, I guess they are directed to go to MilConnect and to search out resources, and we're there. So we're registered with MilConnect. We actually had a veteran fly out from Paris who found us through MilConnect, and she came and she talked. So she was kind of scouting out before she was to be exited, and she'll be exited this summer. So she was kind of doing some housing scouting of what areas that she wanted to live in. So we were able to help her navigate that before she gets out.
Awesome, thank you. So I do have 2 more questions. One back about the chicken, but a few questions that are here for you. If you can look over at your screen down here, and a few questions that if you want to go ahead and provide some information for that, I appreciate it.
First question is, what is the Veteran Social Services most important veteran program. I get that's blocked. There we go. Okay. Our most important veteran program is our mental health program. Stephanie, you want to touch on why that would be, or you know, she alluded the mental health importance of veterans, and to pay attention to that and to treat that ongoing. It is a constant thing that needs to be addressed. And myself as a fellow veteran, Stephanie, a sister of a veteran who was mainly concerned with her brothers, you know what I mean? So that synergy that we both have upon what is our most important program is the mental health aspect within our program. Our second question is, what is our most important service? Go ahead, Stephanie.
Is the veteran peer support specialist. When I discovered the veteran peer support specialist, which I am now able to attend the classes and get my own certification because I work with veterans. Before it was exclusively to veterans, which I appreciate. I really, really do. But I am so happy that they opened up. I mean, I attended Darren's graduation over the summer. I think how many Saturdays did you spend? Like
It was 80 hours.
80 hours every Saturday. And this is his graduating class. It was the most beautiful thing because some of them were dealing with their own mental health, and they found a place where they could get certified and help other veterans. So I was so overwhelmed by the graduation and their stories, and then being able to register for their next class. And that's Dr. Kathy Cash. She is on our board, and she is a peer support specialist and advocate, and she helps us out a lot in our services and how we design that particular program. Amen.
And last but not least, how you can support veteran social services, donate to our cause, donate to the veterans. And as I stated in the very beginning, veteran and homelessness should never, ever be used in the same sentence. That's how we identify a circumstance of a veteran, but honestly, we should truly never, ever have to use that in the same sentence. And I will work till I die, and Stephanie, till we finish, to where that is not a reality any longer, that every veteran getting out of the military will have the support, will have the housing, will have the mental health support, will have the case management and the peer community that they experienced when they were active duty on into civilian life. Our last slide is of a veteran who came through our program, and he passed away. And I will let you hear his story. I'm trying to find that button. Can you hear? Anyway, there's no volume, but Gary came to us to 25th Street. He was in prison for 6 years. He had no income. It was during COVID. We helped him get his benefits. Got him 100% service connected disability. One of our peer support specialists helped him go pick out a brand new car, enrolled into Cal State LA into the Project Rebound program. And for 3 years, he stayed on the honor roll. He would have been being released off parole in December. And unfortunately, he passed away. But he is still our success story because he came to us with nothing and shared everything that we hope that every veteran experiences with our program, and that is hope. And that is a future beyond the barriers that have been plaguing them for years. So rest in peace, Gary, and we want to thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so one last question. Where's the chicken, please?
Goldenberg.
Goldenberg chicken.
That was the last question. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I have to ask a question about the chicken place. Just kind of, she said the most well known, and when you find somewhere where there's good food, you want to get involved with that. So our last speaker, Josh Hauk, I mentioned, and I say this each time, it requires passion. There's a lot of passion involved in what's done here, and people who are here and as speakers, it's needed to have that passion, to have that character, and also to have the skin in the game, as mentioned in the past. Having skin in the game, having the relating ability to understand, hey, this is what we need. Josh Hauk is a military veteran, Air Force, and his goal is similar to my goal: help young men and women, or help personnel get to where they want to be. It's not where I want you to be. It's not where he wants anyone to be. It's getting to where they want to be, just advancing in life. And if you have the resources, why not give it? Why hold it to yourself? And I forgot the word, but why keep that information to yourself? Why not pass it out? And the more we pass that information out, the better we grow as a community. So Josh, I appreciate it. Thank you. And without further ado, come on up, brother. Thank you.
Bear with me as I get situated one moment for all y'all out there online. Okay. Travis, thanks so much, man. That was a great introduction. All right, folks. So thank you so much for joining us online, and for those who are here in person. My name is Joshua Hauk. I am a business outreach liaison for the Office of Small Business and Disabled Veteran Business Enterprise Services. That is a mouthful, so we often shorten that to OSDS. We fall within the Department of General Services for the state of California. And before we get started, especially for those online, I want you to take a moment. I want you to jot down my contact information, whether you're using like old school pen and paper, whether you're putting it into your phone, whether you're taking a computer screenshot. If you've got questions during this presentation, I'm going to do my best to address them in Q&A segments. But if you've got questions outside of the presentation, say you think of something at like 2 o'clock in the morning and you write it down and you want to send it to somebody, you've now got a point of contact within the state system that you can reach out to. I'm either going to get you the information that you're looking for, or I'm going to point you in the right direction of someone who can. I also want to take a moment. I want to thank Trevis for teeing us up so well. I want to thank Jane for talking about all the services that she's providing. I want to thank, of course, Darren and Stephanie. Stephanie, I see you on the Air Force side and having a little bit of a soft spot there. I got you. And I definitely want to thank Al for hosting us up here too today with the Southwest Veterans Business Resource Center. They do amazing work with the community. We're so happy to be here. We're so happy to be in such good company. But that said, let's go ahead and keep it going. Now, today, we're going to be going over DGS's Level 2 hybrid webinar here of I'm Certified, Now What? It's the second in a 3-part series that the state of California provides. And if you've had a chance to attend our Level 1 webinar, How to Do Business with the State of California, that's fantastic. But I do want to note there may be some overlap in presentation material. We do in this one, do a bit more of a focused drill down on procurement concepts and things to add to your profile. So bear with us for a little bit of time. For those of you who haven't seen the first webinar or who haven't registered your business in Cali Procure, that's okay. I fully recommend, since we're going to dive into some complex stuff, If you find something you don't fully understand, I want you to look and find on the internet, maybe a recording of our level 1 webinar out there, or find one that's coming up. I want you to take notes. I want you to ask questions. And if we have something here that we're not able to answer, I want you to reach out to businessoutreach@dgs.ca.gov or reach out to us personally. We are very much happy to help. And that said, let's go ahead and get into I'm certified, now what? Now we're going to be going over some really awesome things. We're going to be talking about Cali Procure profiles. We're going to talk about some of the ways that buyers and departments find you, like keywords and UNSPSCs, or United Nations Standard Products and Services Codes. We're going to go over market research tools, like how to research past purchases. We're going to talk about advocates and how they're an amazing resource for both you as well as their departments. And since it's not just about us, we are going to talk about reciprocity partners and the advantages that they provide. We're going to be talking about emergency contracting. And last but not least, because I know it's a special point out there, we're going to talk about CUF, or commercially useful function. All right. Now, normally we drop polls into chats and things like that, but a quick question for those out here who are business owners in person, and for those online, feel free to drop it into the chat as well. I'm kind of curious to see who out there is registered in Cali Procure. So you look at that, I see you, Al. All right. Are you registered in Cali Procure? Okay, it's okay. We got about a 50-50 mix here in person. That's all right. So at this point in our presentations, we're hopeful that you're familiar with Cali Procure, and that's the state's centralized procurement website where businesses need to get registered to bid on state contracts, and where businesses hopefully get certified. But to get an idea of how our audience is looking, we normally ask that question, but no matter where you're at, we normally start with this piece of advice, often the most prolific, and that is to keep your profiles active. Now, I want you to think about something. When you Google a business out there, and you take the time to see what that business does, even visit that business out there, how would you feel if the information that was listed wasn't correct? And I'm betting you might feel frustrated. So, Cali Procure, that's the website where state departments and procurement officials search to see what you can do. For buying goods and services, it's our Google. So it's critical that the information listed in Cali Procure is accurate. When buyers and prime contractors are able to easily find you and know what products and services you provide, it's a win-win for both you and the state. So just take a second, double check that all the information listed on this slide is prepped and accurate. And if not, take some time to update. Now, with that said, those last 2 points, keywords and UNSPSCs, those are the keys to keeping your profile robust. So let's go into some details on how you can best utilize those tools. All right. Okay, so short story. Keywords and UNSPSCs describe goods and services, but more importantly, these are critical aspects of how state government buyers find you. They are used to determine what notifications Cali Procure should send to you. And the best part is you get to determine what keywords and UNSPSCs are associated with your profile. You add them when you initially register in Cali Procure in your bidder profile, and then you get to add them when you get certified in your certification profile. Now, the big point is you've got all the power with this. So for all my Spider-Man people out there, you know, with great power comes great responsibility. So let's take a deeper dive into each of these so you can see how you can be responsible in maintaining your keywords and your UNSPSCs. All right. So you got your business, right? You sell widgets. One of the ways that the state government knows to go to you for their widget needs is by searching for associated goods or services by keywords that you've got listed in your profile. And the best part is you pick your keywords. This isn't based off of some predetermined list that the state of California has. It's what you say that you do. And the best part is you can edit them at any time. Now, a lot of businesses make mistakes here. And if businesses make mistakes, then they're not easily found by buyers. So we want to talk about tips and tricks that will help you best represent your business with keywords. So with that, we like to say use individual words and not sentences. So say you sell pens. Instead of saying, I sell ballpoint pens, you want to say ballpoint pens. Or if you are going into our second concept, you want to use singular and plural versions of these things too. So instead of saying ballpoint pens, you say ballpoint pen, ballpoint pens. You can use common words and technical jargon. So you can say ballpoint pens and you can say Bic number 5 blue ballpoint pen, model number XYZ. Let's see, you can talk about broad words. You can talk about specific words. We just talked about brand names right there with like Bic for a pen, right? You can use brand names. You can use synonyms. I know up here we've got garbage, trash, waste, things like that. Think about multi-word keywords out there too. So I know we've got information technology out there. So you can list information technology and IT. Think about public relations and PR. You can list both of those as keywords. And this is the best piece of advice that I love giving because it's probably the most impactful with this. Copy keywords from competitors. You were talking about finding the words for keeping like information to yourself. Like when we're talking about this, like this isn't a high school math quiz where all the answers should be like siloed and kept to yourself. I see you, Matt. If someone out there has done the work, use their work to make you competitive. This is one of those things that can really like make you stand out to the state of California. And I'm always a firm believer of working smarter, not working harder, you know? All right. So I want to go back and I want you to think about that Google example, right? When you search for something on Google, do you think it's exactly the thing that you searched for? Or do you think it's a bunch of numbers behind the scenes? And I get that's kind of a rhetorical question, but it is numbers. And I want you to think of UNSPSC codes, like numbers behind the scenes for those who are searching in Cali Procurement. So as I mentioned before, UNSPSC stands for United Nations Standard Products and Services Code. Now, it's an 8-digit number. It's also a written description, and it identifies a good or a service, but not an industry. All right, you're going to see an example right here. So each code is part of a hierarchy with 4 levels, and each level is determined by 2, 4, 6, or 8 digits, with the remaining digits being 0. Now, the goods and services identified by the code, they become more specific in the lower levels of the hierarchy, as you can see. So understanding that hierarchy, it empowers a business to find relevant and related codes. If a business finds that level 4 code down there, they can understand how the hierarchy works, and then they can figure out if they should go look at the level 3 code or the level 2 code or any of the codes that fall within it. Now, there are great websites which review this information and cover even more. So when you have a chance, please check out dgs.ca.gov/PD-OSDS and search for keywords and UNSPSCs. You're going to see a wonderful website out there that gives a lot more information and provides, I would say, an edge in terms of learning how to work with the state on stuff like that. All right. Now, there's a couple of types of profiles that businesses interact and maintain when working in Cali Procurement. Bidder profiles and certification profiles, that's what I'm talking about here. UNSPSCs are a part of where these come into play. So you've got your bidder profile, right? And that's where your UNSPSC information is not publicly displayed. I want you to think of this like information for you, because the codes that you list here result in Cali Procure notifications coming to you. Now, I also want you to remember that like these codes that you list here, they can be aspirational. So maybe you want to use this like market research. Maybe you sell pens, right? But you want to see if there's a market out there for whiteboard markers. When you put in a code, you can see if there are notifications. And if there are, it probably means that the state has an interest in in purchasing that product. You can also use this in conjunction with geographical areas. So maybe you're down here in Temecula, and that's fantastic. And you know that you can sell pens in Temecula, but maybe you want to see if you're able to sell pens in Los Angeles or Fresno or Northern California. Again, if you get those notifications, you can see that there's an interest with that. So your bidder profile, that is your key to success. So definitely make sure that you're keeping an eye on it. But you've also got your certification profile. Now, I want you to think about this like information for those that you work with, right? It's publicly displayed. Buyers throughout the state can see this, as well as anyone who visits Cali Procure, right? So think about it. If buyers can see this, buyers are going to use that to find businesses to solicit bids. So if buyers are using this like Google, your information has to be accurate to what your business currently does. So if you're thinking about selling whiteboard markers in addition to pens, but right now you only sell pens, you only want to list pens for something like that. And again, I know I'm going off of that one comparison, but it's a good comparison out there. So definitely keep that in mind. Your bidder profile, your certification profile, definitely know the differences between the two, but it is a really, really great, like teamed up tandem thing for success. All right. So I know we're going to talk more about what goes into a certification profile. And I want you to dive into that in future webinars or in-person events that are out here too. But for now, regarding UNSPSCs, I want you to remember, when selecting UNSPSCs, right, you're going to want to search in Cali Procure. There is a quad button. So if you're looking at the site, there's like 4 little quad sections at the bottom that says Get Certified, which covers UNSPSCs, and it gives the links to DGS's websites, which brings me to my second point. Search on the DGS website. That gives you access to a custom UNSPSC dashboard and better information. Last but not least, I know we had that hierarchy out there, so you're going to want to check all throughout that hierarchy to find things that are up and down in terms of complexity. And last but not least, don't keep information siloed. Copy codes from competitors. That is definitely a huge key to success, and it's definitely one of the things that I think really help improve businesses to be seen by the state of California. All right, with that said, I know we kind of got to our first Q&A section. If there are questions out in the chat, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing them, but I don't see anything streaming right now. Any questions out here in person? Going once, going twice. All right, we're gonna keep it going. Okay, so with that said, we've had the chance to cover keywords and UNSPSCs, but now we're going to spend a little time talking about the actual aspects of updating them in Cali Procure. And of course, the first step is visiting the Cali Procure website that is listed right there. All right, and when you get there, it's going to look a little something like this. You can see those quad buttons below, like I was just talking about. But the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to log into your profile. And if you don't have a profile yet, don't worry. It's one of those things. You can create it. It's really cool. It's really easy. Again, it's how you interact with the state of California. So, all right, we're going to keep it going. And it's going to look something like that, right? Now, again, when your profile comes up, you're going to want to click on Manage Notification Profile here. I'm going to try and expand that so everyone out here can see. Now that's again outlined by a handy dandy red arrow and rectangle. I think it's just a hair below there, but I promise you it's there for those in person. Now remember, this uses information and codes you put in for system generated notifications. So that's one of those things that is for you. All right. And also a pro tip, I highly advise selecting yes to the question asking if you'd like to receive SB and DVBE subcontracting notifications. There's a lot of opportunities out there, right? Especially in subcontracting. So you want to make sure that you're in the loop for notifications. So if you're just starting out, you want as much information about opportunities as possible, right? So this can be used for those who are looking to see what's out there right now, or aspirational opportunities as well too. So definitely something to keep in mind. All right. Now, the same concept goes for CSCR bidding opportunity notifications. And we'll go over that in a little bit in future slides if you're looking at the acronym. But I'm a firm believer, again, you want to put as many contracting notifications in front of you as possible. And this does that. So make sure you select yes to receive CSCR bidding opportunity notifications. Now on the left, you can see that there are email addresses that you want notifications to go. Word to the wise, there is no limit to the number of email addresses that you can input in that, right? But at the same time, I would make the email that is listed one that's commonly accessed. So as an example, if you have somebody that you're employing, right? And they're the person that's listed to receive those notifications, and all of a sudden they decide to go to another job or something like that, your way of receiving those notifications, poof, just went away, right? So that's one of those things that you want to try and avoid if possible. That's definitely a pro tip. On the right, you can see service areas that you want to receive notifications about. I do want to note that helpful button right there that says for services statewide, click here, right? And some folks are able to provide services statewide. So if that's the case, absolutely click that. But as an example, maybe you only serve Southern California. Maybe you only serve Temecula, right? Maybe you're not interested in opportunities in the Bay Area. Maybe Central California is where you can fulfill contracts. No matter the situation, this is where you define scope. So definitely very important. All right. Of course, once you go further, you search for UNSPSCs. Now, we recommend searching by UNSPSC description. Now, it performs a search which may generate results that or contain codes that are relevant, but ones that you might not have thought of if you were working with one parent code or one type of hierarchy. Our best advice here, type the words that match your products and services and list as many relevant codes as possible. Now, remember, for this part of your profile, these search descriptions can be aspirational as well. So you can use that like market research. It's what you want notifications on. All right. Now, here's a great example, right? Now, we searched in here, like you would if you were on the site, with the word paper. And you can see the relevant codes that are listed there. And another thing to note, this is a great example of the hierarchy, right? So in the red rectangle, you see the top code has 4 zeros at the end. You know, it's a little fuzzy out here, but you can definitely see it if you're looking online. And then after that, there's 2 more digits that were added for the one below. And then the last one even has 01. So you can see it gets more complex the way that it goes down. And it goes from paper products to a subcategory of business use printing and writing paper to a subcategory of onion skin paper. Anybody here in the audience know what onion skin paper is? Going once, going twice. It's all right. I've encountered one person out there that knew what onion skin paper was. Apparently used for plans for outdoor gardening. I'm not entirely positive. Either way, you can see that there's a very specific code attached to it. So it's one of those things, you can find things that are very specific to what your business does. After you've reviewed all the search results and you click on the codes that you want to add, we won't select onion paper down there right now. You can see that there's a blue check mark right next to it. And if you scroll down, you're able to ensure that those are added, and you will see, boom, the codes will appear right there on the right. So remember, you can always delete codes that you don't want. And don't forget, before you leave, save your preferences, because you don't want to like do this once and then lose all your progress. You want to make sure it's one, done, and you're set and you're good to go. All right. So we talked a little bit about your bidder profile, right? And how you can use the information to system generate notifications for solicitations. Well, let's get more into your certification profile. And I want you to remember, this is the information that's geared more towards those that you work with, like visitors and buyers within Cali Procurement. That information is publicly displayed information. So remember, this has to be accurate. It cannot be aspirational on that part. So also remember, this isn't just like a one-time update, right? You can update this very often. You can use things that are outward facing. You can change up your keywords. You can change up your UNSPSCs. This is the spot to do it. This is your jam. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go back, if you've got a profile, to your work center, and then we're going to click Manage Certification in one of those 2 spots. Either way, it takes you to the spot that you want to go. And then you're going to want to click on Amend Application. Now, I want to settle some anxiety that may come with seeing that button. This doesn't mean that you're reapplying for certification if you've applied for certification. It just means that we're using it to get to your certification application. Now, we just need to navigate to where we manage keywords and codes, which is on the other tab up there. Now, we unfortunately can't just click and jump to that section. I know it's kind of a pain on that part. We need to scroll down and we need to click Save and Continue until we get to the other section. And I'm going to be real here. I know this can be annoying, right? But remember when I said often our most impactful advice would be to keep your profiles active? This is a great opportunity to go through, to check over that information, to make sure everything is up to date. But today we're focused on getting to the other tab. So once you're finally there, you are able to do some really cool things. On the left side, you can see up there, you can review service areas that your business actually serves. Again, not aspirational. Now, if you've already selected service areas from your bidder registration, you can transfer them. But you want to be careful because sometimes you might have selected something in your bidder registration that might be aspirational, and you want to make sure that these are the areas that you 100% can serve. On the right, same thing. This is where you manage keywords. You can enter keywords here one at a time. You can see how we've done that, but you want to remember our tips and recommendations. But this is, again, where you want to put as many as are applicably possible. Of course, you can use the plus to add more rows, and you can click the red X to delete any keywords that you don't want. All right. Now, again, if you have entered UNSPSCs in your bidder profile, you can transfer them here, but I want to recommend at least double checking them because, again, you want them to be what you actually do and not necessarily aspirational. These can be the spot to mark exactly what you provide. Now, for what I really recommend, you see the spot where you can scroll down and to the section on UNSPSCs. Here you can add and delete UNSPSCs. If you want that little bit of extra oversight, I would click Add UNSPSC classification, and then it would allow you to search and confirm like one at a time. And I think that's probably a very wise way to do it. All right. So again, it should look really familiar. We're searching by description the same way that we did in the registration section. And again, for example, we searched for paper, and then we selected 2 relevant codes to add. And I know you can't see it, but onion skin paper gets no love one more time. But of course, you select, you scroll down to the bottom, you click save, and then those codes are going to appear on that list. So remember, you can always click the red X to delete a code. It's what you guys or it's what's relevant for you. All right. Now, to close out on a high note for information that you can voluntarily put in your profile, in 2022, the Department of General Services began collecting voluntary diversity data information from certified businesses, currently registered businesses, new businesses, all within a Cali Procure profile. Now, collecting voluntary diversity information is part of California's commitment to support diversity, equity, and inclusion in state procurement. We recommend that all businesses, when registering with the state, complete the voluntary diversity data. It enables the evaluation of the effectiveness of the state's existing outreach programs, and it provides a better understanding of where targeted research efforts need to be established. Now, the goal is to ensure that California's supplier base is reflective of our diverse state, and we're California, we're a diverse state. So, I mean, yeah. The information is voluntary. You can change and remove data at any time from your profile on Cali Procure. And the information, it doesn't provide a contracting preference. It doesn't affect your efforts or your opportunities. It's publicly displayed on your certification profile, and more information can be found if you go to the DGS website and you search for statewide supplier diversity program. Lots of great opportunities. So if you're looking at updating this and you've got your profile, it'll look something like this. In that handy dandy red rectangle right there, you'll see manage diversity information. And then when you click it, it looks like that. It's really simple. It's really straightforward. It's just clicking the boxes that apply to you, saving the preferences, and going from there. All right, we're to our second Q&A section. I don't see anything in the chat. Is there anything close by off of YouTube? If there is, unfortunately, it's just a little bit outside of my eye range, but definitely save those questions. I want to make sure that we're able to address them if they come up. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to go forward to the next section. Now, I want to switch gears. I want to take a common situation. Say an entrepreneur starts a business, and even better for us, they want to sell only to the state of California. Now, that is fantastic. But if they're doing that, what do they do for market research, right? How do they know what goods and services that we want to buy, what contracting opportunities are out there, and where to look for that information? Contracting opportunities are found on the California State Contracts Register, or CSCR, which can be accessed on Cali Procure. It is public-facing information. It encourages competition, and it's where you can look at all the opportunities that are out there. You can post advertisements as a prime looking for a sub. You can post advertisements as a sub looking for a prime. It's a great hub for communication. So let's go ahead and let's take a look. First, you would want to log into your account. Now, I recognize we're talking CSCR, right? You see that gigantic banner up there that says CSCR. And some people out there in the audience might be asking, why do I have to log into my profile in order to check that out? The short answer is you don't. You can check out CSCR without that. But if you log into your profile in Cali Procure and you check out CSCR, it gives you additional functionality that you might not have when just looking without being logged into your profile. So it's what we recommend going forward to getting the most bang for your buck, pretty much, right? All right. Now, up there in big bold letters, you see CSCR when you're logged into your profile, or in search bid opportunities, you would go ahead and click start search, and boom, you've got your primary search fields, right? Now, you can search for specific event names, IDs. You can search by departments, which can be beneficial if you've got products which tie to a certain department. I don't know, maybe you make specialty like machine parts, which work for helicopters. You might want to reach out to CHP because, you know, they might buy parts for helicopters. Maybe you do specific work with like medicine and you want to reach out to California state hospitals. If you've got products that tie to a certain department, that's your key for getting that in. But here's the kicker. These are just the main fields for searching. To narrow that scope even further, right? You can click on advanced search criteria, and it gives you the opportunity to narrow the search further by dates, specific UNSPSC codes. You see contractor license types, any combination you can think of, really. Once the information is entered and the search is executed, it's going to look a little something like this. This is an example of solicitations that are being advertised. And I really encourage you, looking right into the camera here, right in the camera too, right? Get into Cali Procure and do some digging, because this is incredibly valuable market research. This is exactly what the state is looking for right now, based off of your criteria, based off of your scope. Let's say you wanted to dive even further. You want to take a look at a specific line in an event, right? So this is an example of what you're going to see. And I know most of the event details are self-explanatory, but I want to foot stomp the event end date up there because that's when all responses are due. If you are over that date by a second, you won't be considered for fulfilling that solicitation. So you need to be sure to be timely with that info. I also want you to note the UNSPSC codes that are listed, the contractor license type up there, service area. All of those are things that you narrow down in terms of your scope with advanced search criteria. You can see something called a pre-bid conference, which for this particular event, I know it's kind of tiny font up there, but it is not mandatory, but there are some that have it so that it is mandatory. So you want to keep an eye out for that. There is a point of contact who's listed as the contract administrator. Now, this isn't the person that you would market to, but this is just an expert on what's required and the specific needs for this solicitation. And I saved the best for last here. There's 3 other really cool pieces of information on the sheet, and there's those 3 blue buttons that you see up there. The first, the top one, is View Event Package. Has all sorts of helpful documents. Has a statement of work, bid submission instructions, requirements and expectations. Oftentimes there's a checklist to ensure that nothing's forgotten. So if you're looking to fulfill a solicitation for the state of California, you just follow that checklist, you're good to go. There's one that says View Vendor Ads, which is at the bottom of the upper right there. And that allows you to see where primes and subs are posting their needs. As an example, maybe there's a prime contractor out there who does all sorts of work, but again, maybe they need somebody that deals with a specific type of machinery. That's where they're going to post that information. Either way, this is a great spot, again, for primes looking for subs, subs looking for primes. This is where you come together to bring people together to fill the needs for that department. And at this point, you might be thinking, hey, I want to post one of those ads, which brings us to that final button in the middle. Clicking on Post Vendor Ads allows you to post an advertisement like we were just talking about. So when you click on it, this is where you would make your advertisement, right? You're going to enter your name, you're going to enter your email, you're going to enter your phone number. You're going to enter, of course, the title of your company. You're going to select whether you're a prime seeking a sub or a sub seeking a prime. And then you're going to enter your advertisement in that little description box below. All you have is this text box. So you want to make it count. We recommend putting in your certification ID number so it's easy to find your business. And then I want you to think of this as the place to show that you have whatever that person that you're reaching out to, what they need, and you have the skills and the experiences to pull off the job. All right. So that said, we have come to our next Q&A segment on there. I don't know if there are any Q&A coming out on the chat. I'm guessing probably not. That's okay. Again, a lot of the things that we're talking about are very specific to businesses, right? So out of curiosity, what does your business do? Janitorial company? Yeah. So you might see somebody that's working janitorial services, right? You might see somebody that's working IT and information services. You might see somebody that's working like specific crafting services, right? So all of these questions that come up might be very unique to the business that you're working with. You're looking for a specific subset. So it's definitely, if you've got questions, please reach out. We're here to answer specific questions as well too. And you'll see Mhm. No, that's an incredibly great question. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Was there more to it? No. So that's one of those things that it delves into a couple of things. First of all, I want to be very clear. You talked about it for being something for the county. We're talking with the state of California on here, but I got you. I definitely understand what you're getting at, right? So the state of California has it's mandated by law that 25% of all contracting dollars go to certified small businesses. And we have a statewide goal of 3% of all contracting dollars going to DVBEs, Disabled Veteran Business Enterprises, those who are officially certified with that, which we actually surpassed that goal with the last fiscal year that we have on there. So when you talk about those advantages, there are procurement methods which show that, hey, you've taken the time, you've looked at getting certified. We're going to try and do business with you first. There are departments that have SB and DVBE first policies, which we're going to get into when we talk about department advocates. But if you're asking, are there advantages for that? Absolutely.
Well, but some of that data could be on one side, let's say, for example, janitorial.
Yeah.
If you're a consultant, a business consultant, doing computer networks, you may find out that none of these categories are doing more than
Yeah, yeah.
so how does someone like myself understand?
Oh, of course, yeah.
I'm getting started. And I want to see, well, is it worth my time? Fill out this information when the results show that the state never contracts this category.
No. So that is a fantastic question. Just in case it's not being picked up out there online, we were being asked in person, and correct me if I'm not getting this entirely correct, if it is possible to see how often a department works with organizations that take the time to get certified, that take the time to fill out the paperwork, do those things. And the answer on that is a little complicated, but I'm going to try and break it down in a super simplistic way. And then I encourage you to reach out and ask specific questions on that too, because again, janitorial service is different than, the first thing that I would do is I would reach out to department advocates. And I think there's about 250 that are listed out there. And I think we've got some slides that come up to that in the future. But you can ask those questions, right? So, hey, I see that you are contracting janitorial services, I want to say like once every 3 months or something like that. I'm using hypothetical examples. How often are those going to SB and DVBEs? How often are those being awarded to folks who are taking the time to get certified? Those folks who are those department advocates have those links and are able to talk to like department buyers and to get those answers for you. But the part where it gets complicated, right, is there are so many different departments that it varies based on department to department, right? So 250 people, I can't speak for 250 people all at once,
12 years.
Yeah.
It has to be the person that was doing the presentation. Why she didn't get forward? Because she was trying to get rid of it for many years. She wasn't.
Yeah.
So then that will follow up. It's an opportunity to receive feedback. In this case, for a woman, she didn't know what she was doing wrong because she filled out all the forms and wrote them correctly.
Yeah.
She filled out the bids with all the specifications on time, and she never received any award. So there was feedback. Classifications of product and services done.
Yeah.
In her classification, it could have been those are not, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because she was bidding a lot of contractors. Actually, and may have been for another part of the state, right?
Yeah.
You can bid anywhere in the state as long as you want to do that.
Of course.
So there may not be a demand in that particular area of the state. So we don't have doesn't have that information, doesn't have that access to that information.
Yeah.
We could be spinning on wheels.
Of course. And no one wants to spin their wheels.
When you bid, maybe 5 contract opportunities to come out every year, but you've got 1,000 bidders.
Yeah. Okay.
And you don't work, and you don't have an office that.
No, of course. You want to make sure that when you're looking at procurement opportunities, that they're relevant to the business that's going forward. So bear with me because I want to make sure the folks out there online can hear all this too. And Al, I don't know if, how big the microphones are, if they're able to catch the audience out there. So if I'm repeating something for those and you've already heard it. So thank you for your patience on that front. But you said it was, what, 10 years that they've been bidding on stuff? 12 years. Okay. So
In her case, I think the key thing for her is to be able to get some feedback as to why she's not being successful.
yeah. So for those out there online, the question was for those who have been bidding on procurement opportunities, and there was an example in the audience, say someone had been bidding for like 12 years and they hadn't gotten any feedback. Is there a method for feedback for those particular businesses to see what they could do to improve like their profiles to be better seen by department buyers? And that's something where we encourage you to reach out to us, because if you're looking at 12 years, that's a very long time, right? That's something where we would encourage you to do a one-on-one appointment with us way before that point, right? And say like, hey, take a look at my profile. Are my keywords lining up? Are my UNSPSCs lining up? Have we done market research with skippers? Have we done, which we will get into in the next set of slides on this part? Because it seems to me like at that point, like they need that feedback on there. And the way to get it is literally to schedule that one-on-one appointment. If we can help you look at your profile, we'll definitely do that. If you're having issues with a particular department, we can point you in the direction of that department advocate as well too. But yeah, that's something where I would really, really encourage them to talk with us first, because that profile, I'm betting, is lacking something which is not getting that attention, right?
This is an example of keywords. There could be like people who use evaluation.
Yeah.
And they may high priority on keywords, first word versus the last word.
Yeah.
So by the time they go through it and look for that word, they've gone through different keywords, but not the one that they have a high priority, which is a curious definitely decision on someone's part.
Hit me with your name one more time.
I just feel again lower.
Gil. Okay, Gil, you are teeing me up so perfectly for the next set of slides. So I want to talk about that. You talked about like what, sorry, for those out there online, we're talking about how people are looking for keywords on the other side of the fence, right? Now, I would consider that a part of market research. So think along the lines of past purchases. Say, again, a department is buying pens every 3 months and they're looking for a specific code, or they're looking for a specific keyword on that part. The way that we would check that out is through something called Skippers, which is the State Contracts and Procurement Registration System. So that is, again, it's a holy grail of market research, right? It is a public-facing database of past state purchases. It includes state and non-state dollars. It's public-facing, found on CaliProcure, and you can use it to find patterns in what departments are buying, when they're buying it, what acquisition types an office is using. You can also use this to see who won contracts, and you can look at it to pull relevant information like keywords and UNSPSC. So when you talk about, hey, maybe I'm putting this one instead of another, this is where you see like, hey, this department has been looking at these particular keywords and these particular UNSPSCs. Now, I'm always a firm believer, you're doomed to repeat the past unless you learn from it. This is where you learn from the past, man. And I'm telling you, this is gonna tee you up. Thank you so much for that slide, because I was gonna say it's absolutely perfect. But this is also something that we can talk you through in terms of one-on-one appointments as well. So keep your eye on that slide for a QR code. Trust me, it's coming. I got you. All right, so if you're looking for this, we are going to show you one of the best ways to find it. Of course, you go onto CaliProcure. Those are those quad buttons at the bottom that I'm talking about. You're going to want to go to Find Public Procurement Information, and then you're going to see past purchases in state contracting and procurement registration system. So you're going to click on that link for Skippers, and it's going to look something like this, right? So again, really, really important here. Now, we did a generic search on construction, right? So again, you could use this for janitorial services. You could use this for anything. But here's the kicker, right? So DGS talks with a lot of these departments, but if you've got specific questions regarding why did this department want to purchase item X instead of item Y, those are questions for the awarding departments, so we can help get you in contact with them. But we want to be clear on what we can help you with. I couldn't tell you why CHP buys what they buy, or why, California State, like, you don't want to even see me deal with construction. I can barely put a drywall or anything like that, right? But it's one of those things that those departments can give you better, more detailed information. And in terms of how up to date that information, it's batched quarterly, so you can see it come through. It's relatively, I would say it's relatively recent on all that stuff. You can view this information directly from the Skippers page, or you'll see download search results or download additional information. That pulls it into Excel. If you're really good with Excel, I mean, seriously, you can get a lot of data from all this stuff. So just keep in mind, it's going to be a long download, so there's a little bit of a trade-off there. But again, you get recent information, and then you can get information going all the way back to 2015. So a lot of information. You're talking item descriptions, UNSPSCs and descriptions, unit prices, things like that. Department data is listed, and I've literally got it in my notes right here, but it's so applicable to what you're talking about. UNSPSC codes and keywords all in there as well too. So really, really, really important on that. All right. So there's a little more information if you were to look at it like you're on a computer, if you were scrolling over. You can see certifications for suppliers are listed, as well as acquisition type. Remember certifications, where we talked about, is it worth your time getting certified? They can give you access to solicitations that non-certified firms don't have access to. So as an example, if you look at the third row down, and I know it's like really, really tiny font up there, so I'm so sorry. But you'll see the acquisition method is listed as an SB option, which is used to give advantages to certified small businesses. But there is a DVBE option as well for veterans out there in the audience. So that can give advantages to veterans. If you've got questions about acquisition methods, I definitely want you to reach out to businessoutreach@dgs.ca.gov. If you've got questions about if a department is going to continue to use a particular type of method, I want you to reach out to the advocate, which we're going to cover in a couple of slides as well. But that said, I do want to open it up to Q&A again too, because I realize that we have covered a lot, and I feel like we resonated on a point with the audience, so I'm really, really digging that. Do you have any questions going on further, or anything for the folks in the audience?
Well, I know one thing.
Oh yeah.
And the other piece of it is that
Yeah. 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 The question is how cheap is the pen? Yeah. I got you. Yeah. So you are. Oh no, please. Yeah.
Is that when someone finds a product is effective, the state doesn't go back and disqualify people use these companies. No cost they can provide quality. It costs the go from one particular area of the state to go around the whole state. You can get a whole lot of contracts out there. Low possible quality.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to split that into two kind of categories, because it seems like we're talking, and again, I'm trying to get it for the folks online too. So one, we're talking about the concept of procurement methods based off of lowest cost, and whether or not those are advantageous for all folks that are coming out there. And then B, I think you talked about how hard it is to get in contact. Yeah.
They'll say they want a floor strip and wax.
Yeah.
And then specification doesn't say how many coats of wax should be put on it.
Yep.
And what should be the content of wax as well.
Yeah.
So it's not knowing that information. Okay.
Yeah.
You don't know, because not everyone's going to bid the contract on a basis because it's going on a dollar.
Of course. And I promise I'm going to get into quality in the next section on this part too. But you're absolutely right. So we're talking about pretty much the contents of particular contracts that are out there in solicitations, and whether or not low price is advantageous to all the folks that are out there versus quality for those that are out there as well too, and what the state gets on that. And then we also talked about how it can be tough to get in contact with contract administrators or department advocates. And I'm going to touch on the first part very quickly, because that is very specific to departments. So departments are responsible for their own, what they're putting out solicitations for. So that's one of those things that you do need to establish that relationship and say, like, hey, are you satisfied with the quality of results that you're getting? Assembly Bill 1574 just mandated, I believe, into law the requirement for departments to spread out in terms of diversity for the types of businesses that they're doing business with. So they're not just doing business with the same business all the time. They can get an idea of which businesses are giving them the best quality products. But that being said, that's something where you want to reach out and you want to establish that relationship with department advocates, which brings me to the second point of that, where it can be really hard to get in touch with these folks. I believe in Small Business Month, Governor Newsom mentioned that there were 4.2 million small businesses out there in the state of California, right? And we're talking about 250 state advocates like regularly. So it's a little bit of a mismatch on numbers right there, right? But that actually, again, I'm telling you, man, you are lining me up topic for topic on this part, because I do want to talk about talking with advocates, and I want to talk about the best way to communicate with them so you get that bang for your buck, right? So I know in earlier presentations, and I think we touched on it a little bit before, every department in the state of California is mandated by law to do 25% of all of its contracting dollars with certified small businesses. And the state has a statewide goal of 3% of contracting dollars going to certified DVBEs. Department advocates are the folks that make it happen. They are rock stars. Any agency or department that procures at least 100 grand per year must have an SB or a SB and DVBE advocate. And they work for the state. They're often in purchasing and procurement, and they often are in a manager or analyst role. In their position, they've got a lot of responsibilities, including, but not limited to, helping small businesses and DVBEs pursue contracting opportunities for the department that they work for. So pulling in different ones with different offerings on that part. Maybe somebody waxes a floor one time, maybe somebody waxes a floor 3 times, I know we talked about contract administrators being experts on individual contracts. So if you're talking about individual projects, of course, contract administrators. But if you're talking about marketing your services to for your individual case, so we're talking janitorial services, maybe you want to work with state of California hospitals on that part, because you realize they have a large requirement for cleaning services, right? These are the folks that you would reach out to instead of those specific contract administrators. These are the folks that you market to. They assist businesses in prompt payment. In the last year, thanks to Assembly Bill 1574, they're required to seek out new businesses that they haven't already done business with for contracting opportunities. And each department has their own different way of doing that. So if you've got questions, you definitely want to reach out. You want to establish that relationship. But before we talk about where to find these advocates, I want to talk about the information that's going to be really important to them that helps you, again, get that bang for your buck. So I know this seems simplistic, right? But the information on there really does help, because you see a lot of folks like blasting mass emails. So let's see, you're looking for contact information, your certification number, because it makes it really easy to find you in Cali Procure. You're wanting a description of what you do. Your capability statement, if you've got one, definitely makes a difference in there too. Again, we're talking 4.2 million small businesses and only a handful of these advocates. So again, when they get mass emails, it's really hard to look at those. If you're talking specifically like a one-on-one conversation with things like that, it makes it easier for those folks to help those particular businesses. I know that there are folks out there who don't have a capability statement, but if you don't have a capability statement, I recommend you reach out to partner organizations such as Southwest Veterans Business Resource Center, SBDC's Apex Accelerators. They hone presenting what your business can do. They talk about your clients. They talk about your why, which is why the state should choose you for services. And normally we ask this in a poll online, but especially for those out there in YouTube, I'm looking at you. You definitely put into the chat, if you can, whether or not you've reached out to a support organization and how it's worked. If you haven't, that's fantastic. You now have homework. That's perfect. If you have, go back, reach back out again. I like to think of them as cookies, right? So you've got all these different support organizations. Take a bite of each one, and the one that you think tastes best, the one that works best with you, you want to like keep going and work at that. But you also want to be able to use all of them too. So don't toss away all the other cookies. Just make sure you go with the one that works best for you. So that being said, I think that is definitely good advice going forward. And we've talked about the basics of what to include, but let's start talking about that conversation, right? About establishing that relationship between you and that advocate. One of the biggest things that's often asked is if they have current or upcoming contracts. Often advocates have that information teed up, and that's a good spot to ask, like, okay, well, what are the specific requirements of the upcoming solicitations? Again, sometimes they have this like perfect and ready to go, but it does vary from office to office. You can also ask to be included in relevant solicitations. There may be some things that the department or office has coming up that maybe you didn't think of, and maybe this is a great way that you can help each other if you're working with that particular department. And then last but not least, you can ask about commonly purchased goods and services. So again, you're talking about that quality. So maybe somebody's putting in that bid for pens and half the pens don't work all the time, right? You can talk about those commonly purchased goods. And I would advise doing a preliminary search on skippers before that, so you have a general idea of what that department relies upon and how often they're purchasing. But last but not least, I do want to talk about accessing the advocate directory. So of course, Cali Procure, our one-stop shop right there. You gotta love a pattern. You see those quad buttons below right there, and then it says find training and resources. So you're going to want to go ahead and click that. And then you're going to see contact a small business and DVBE advocate. That's your one-stop shop. That's going to bring you to a DGS page for the advocate directory. And then it's going to look a little something like that. And then you would click that link right there that says download the advocate directory. And I know this is going to be updated in the future very soon, but for right now, this is what that sheet looks like. There's a few interesting points that I want to point out. One is you'll see California's Department of Technology has 2 advocates that are listed there for like one department, right? Again, you might be dealing with a really big department. So it's sometimes you want to make sure that you have their dollars adequately represented. You want to ensure that they're fully complying with the law. You want to make sure that you have that extra oversight. That's why you might have multiple points of contact for one particular department. The next that you'll see there is the California Highway Patrol, which I always love using as an example. They've got a wonderful advocate, which is forward thinking in terms of like best practices and compliance with AB 2019. They create economic equity plans for internal department policies. All of these highlighted departments that we're talking about, and I could circles back to another question that you had, was they utilize an SB and DVBE first policy. So if you see that highlight right there, and you've got those certifications, it is really big. You can do a lot of great stuff with those departments. I'm looking at you. All right. That being said, I know this is a lot, but if you do have questions, and especially general questions like we're getting from the audience right now, and I appreciate you, man, I really do, or specific questions, please do not be afraid to reach out. This is one of those things of, we'll either get you the information that you're looking for or we'll point you in the right direction of someone who can. But we're going to open it back up one more time for questions on this particular section and see if there's anything out there. I don't want to like cut off our folks online, but I do want to make sure that we are addressing everyone. Any other questions on this stuff before I go forward? On once, on twice. All right. We're going to keep it going. Now, I want to take a moment and I want to talk about reciprocity partners because you were talking about the county back there. And I'm like, all right, I see you. A reciprocity partner for the state of California is, a city, a county, a public utility, an agency, a special district that honors the state of California's certifications. Now we're talking, of course, SB and DVBE certifications, and they use that as acceptance into their individual business enterprise programs. Last count, I believe we have 43 reciprocity partners throughout the state. And you're talking about things like, I want to say PG&E, like you might be talking County of San Diego, things like that. It's one less hoop to jump through, right? So if you get certified through the state, you don't have to go and get certified with that particular organization. They say, hey, this counts. It's one less thing to do. The state of California the state of California has done the vetting for you. We got you. I want to be clear, they recognize our certifications, but they also have particular requirements for their own organization. So please reach out to applicable points of contact. Many have local vendor systems that are similar to Cali Procure. Maybe you're looking at something like Planet Bids. So you're going to want to reach out and you're going to want to see the specific needs for that. All right. So with that, I know this is a lot of dense information, but I'm hoping you're grabbing a lot out of it. I'm hoping if you're either watching live or watching as a recording, you're able to bookmark at specific spots so you can get the help that you're looking for, right? Now that we've talked both in this webinar and previous webinars about different kinds of fulfillment for solicitations, I want to talk about a very important part of state contracting, and that's contracting during emergencies for the state of California. And California is no stranger to emergencies. We've got wildfires, earthquakes, tropical storms, things like that. But it's not just like that, right? Like, let's say that a water pipe bursts in a California state hospital. That can be considered an emergency too. And that's how this is how we contribute to those types of responses. Now, the emergency registry is a dedicated portal for California certified businesses to register as a supplier of emergency goods and services. It's separate from Cali Procure. but you can find information on it on Cali Procure, which is fantastic. It's used by State Department buyers, and unlike Cali Procure, it only includes businesses that provide goods and services from a predetermined set of emergency categories. We're going to show those on the next slide for those of you watching. State Department buyers can access and search this pool of suppliers, and those suppliers need to be ready at a moment's notice. Now, I want you to frame your mindset about this around kind of this particular example, right? If you had a son or a daughter who was a firefighter and the state needed to fulfill a contract for fire hoses, you would want the best resources and the fastest turnaround time, right? This is a self-selection process, but you should be asking yourself the hard questions on if you're willing and able to fulfill these needs and requirements. And again, you're looking to provide these resources in an emergency. So definitely ask yourself that question. But if you are ready for it, if you are saying, yeah, I can do this, you might be asking which businesses should be looking to sign up. We're looking for SBs and DVBEs who are currently ready and able to support the state of California in emergencies. And they have to be able to understand that emergency contracting requires fast, around-the-clock turnaround times. So a business shouldn't register unless they're fully capable of immediately providing the goods or services that they list. I'm a huge advocate of erring on the side of caution with this one, so definitely ask those questions. All right. We're talking categories. I'm not going to go over every single one, but you can see as a general theme, we're talking about providing, I'd say, really important resources in difficult times, as you can see here. As a reminder, if you're out there and you're registering for this, businesses need to select at least one category when registering. All right. And if your business is ready to register for something like this, or pardon me, if your business is ready for something like this, then this is the basic information that you're going to need to register. You're going to need a certification number, the categories that you're looking to work in. You're going to need a description of products and services that you provide, the address of your business, and I think this is the most important, contact information for both your primary 9 to 5 hours and your emergency like off hours. Because again, emergencies happen 24/7 when working with the state of California. All right. For more information on the registry, you're going to go to Cali Procure and sell to the state. And then when you click on that, you're going to find that link, which is going to take you to a DGS page. Oh, sorry. And that's pretty much where you're going to go to learn all about the registry. All right, we're getting to the good stuff. Last but not least, we're going to talk about CUF. So what we call CUF is commercially useful function. And you might be asking yourself a question, like if I'm working with something with the state of California, how do I know if I'm providing a commercially useful function? It's determined by buyers and contract administrators. But that said, there are points to help you ensure that you're on the right track. So if you're performing a distinct element of the work, if you're managing or supervising or performing an element of the work, if you're performing work that's normal for a firm's business services and functions, if you're negotiating price, if you're determining quality and quantity, if you're installing, if you're making payments, if you're not subcontracting a portion of the work that's greater than expected by industry standards, you're likely providing CUF. And this applies to all SBs and DVBEs out there and who are participating in the contract, both originally listed and say someone switches out like a subcontractor, right? It's still going to apply to those during the contract term. It's also really important to note that CUF is required regardless of the procurement approach or the payment method used. And if someone's trying to bypass CUF, and we're going to circle around to this in the last 3 questions, because I know, Al, we were talking about that earlier. It stops the playing field from being level if someone's trying to abuse this, right? And we take that seriously because we want the system to work for all Californians. So we want to talk about some resources, or pardon me, we want to talk about some situations to avoid. So again, your business doesn't really perform CUF if you're an extra participant in a transaction or a contract or a project through which funds are passed in order to obtain the appearance of SB and DVBE participation. So if you've got a whole bunch of folks that are being saying like, yeah, I want to use all these folks that are certified, and then you never use them, it's kind of a pass-through situation, right? That's not what we're looking for. If you're not being used to perform work stipulated in the bid, and if you're no longer used to provide goods or services listed in the initial bid response, you're probably not performing CUF. Now, at the end of the day, if you feel like there's not a commercially useful function being provided, contact us so that we can ensure the right people are getting the right contracting dollars. The system doesn't work unless we all use it fairly. Oh man, we've covered a lot. All right, so before we get to our review, I do want to mention some other tools out there that can help companies prepare for doing business with the state of California. Of course, we've got our host, the Southwest Veterans Business Resource Center, which is a great resource for, which is great for resources and networking, and not to mention really cool poker chips. There are SBDC, Small Business Development Centers out there, which provide fantastic help for new businesses. Apex Accelerators, which are formerly PTACs. They assist businesses with government contracting. There's SCORE, which I believe stands for, the Service Corps of Retired Executives, and they provide great mentorship. In terms of working with the state, right, there's limits to what we can do. So let's say you were like fulfilling a bid and you were asking for help on a specific bid. It would be unfair of us to help you with that because it's unfair to other businesses. But other organizations might be able to provide resources. So they help us keep fair practices. Definitely reach out to them. Take a bite of those cookies. All right. So in conclusion, we had talked about Cali Procure profiles. We talked about keywords in United Nations Standard Products and Services codes. We talked about contracting opportunities. We showed market research tools like CSCR and Skippers. We talked about advocates and how you find them and how you start that relationship. We talked about reciprocity partners and the advantages they provide. And we talked about emergency contracting and CUF. So before we go, I do want to plug our LinkedIn page. It is fantastic. Definitely take a moment, follow us. It allows you to be plugged into more events that we have, both in person and online. And this is a really important slide. I know we've talked in the past about one-on-one consultations. This QR code is where it's at. We cover all the things that we're talking about. We're talking introduction to state contracting, registration and certification, which can be difficult for certain firms. We talk about looking at profiles and seeing if those keywords in UNSPSCs line up with those of your competitors. We talk about finding contracting opportunities. At the end of the day, I think it really comes down to allowing us to really try and help you meet the needs of your dream and your goal if you're working as a small business. And I think that's one thing where when we all come together, we're talking about that rising tide raising all ships. It's an incredible thing. Definitely reach out to us. We want to be a part of that circle that definitely raises that tide. That said, we were asked to provide 3 questions and 3 answers to commonly asked things for those out there online. And the first one, I think, circles back to that. What's the best advice for new businesses working with the state of California? And I get this is more of a philosophical thing, right? Where I could give technical advice all day, but you're looking at, again, going into almost a new world. If you are a transitioning veteran, if you are someone out there who's looking to build your dream as an independent business owner, and you're possibly looking to maximize how you do business, it's all about the circle that you surround yourself with. Again, 2 firm philosophies. You're only as strong as the circle you surround yourself with, and a rising tide raises all ships. So I always say boost your circle, right? Talk to the support organizations out here. If you haven't reached out to Al, if you don't know Al, oh my goodness, go talk with him. He is a wealth of information. If you are talking with support organizations like SBDCs, Apex Accelerators, things like that, that's your circle. If you're looking at state processes, talk to us. We are here for you 100%. This is your taxpayer dollars at work. All right, so the second question that we've got, what is the biggest step in obtaining a DVBE certification? And this, I think, gets into a really important part that Al and I were talking about earlier too, which is in order to get a DVBE certification, right, you have to be at least 10% service-connected disability rated, right? So this is my personal opinion because I recognize how complex of a process that is. But I would say that getting your circle together and getting documentation in terms of what you have earned through service and what should be documented, that can be really difficult. But it is so important because the benefits down the line, we were talking about bid incentives with working with the state. Just make sure that you're getting what you deserve for the service that you provided, right? So definitely reach out, especially I think Jane had more information earlier. Just make sure that you reach out to those points of contact. And last but not least, CUF. We were talking about folks that kind of abuse that system. The most important thing with CUF, and I think we were talking about penalties, both civil and punitive on that part. If there's something happening out there that we don't know about, the biggest thing that you can do, the biggest way that you can help not only yourselves and the state of California is to reach out, right? So again, you're talking, I don't know. We're talking about the way of fighting program abuse, and we're here for you. If you're facing it, definitely reach out. Again, we want to make sure that we are empowering you so that you are successful as a business. But make sure that playing field's level. Don't be afraid to reach out. We are definitely here for you. Other than that, I'll take last call for the questions from the audience, although I don't think we're looking at anything. Oh, all right. Hey.
So Josh, thank you. A little frustrated because
Oh,
the questions you have up there, I sat here and I listened and I have some questions for you.
yeah. No,
I have some
please.
questions for you, but you almost answered it.
Yeah.
It's amazing. But I do have, maybe we can elaborate a little bit on them. The first question is, and I put in my notes why.
Yeah.
I'm interested in starting a business.
Absolutely.
Not even sure what.
Okay.
Not even sure where I want to start at, but I'm interested in starting a business. My question for you is more to advice. Like I said, it seems like you may have answered that question. Why would I go into this site? Why would I utilize this before I even start a business? Why would I do that?
That is a fantastic question. So if you're looking to see like what you want to do, it really depends on who you're selling to, right? So maybe you're selling to I don't know, like random businesses out there. But if you're looking at selling to the state of California, the reason why you would check out these sites is because it's the best tool for market research, right? Again, you can see maybe you provide with like the military service you had, some very unique way of building a specific part. You're able to fulfill a need for the state of California that could be incredibly lucrative. Maybe you're able to like cut at a price point that other folks aren't able to like get in at. This is a way of ensuring that you diversify those that you're doing business with. And that site is the best way to see like how many folks are really interested in that stuff.
Like what's needed out there.
Exactly.
I'm looking for a business, start a business. Well, what's needed?
Absolutely. But I would also recommend with that too. And again, we're talking about that circle, right? So this is for like businesses that are definitely like probably established and looking to do business with the state. But you can also check out if you're like starting businesses. I would say, again, SBDCs, Apex Accelerators, I would reach out to GoBiz on that stuff as well too, because they have a lot of tools and information out there. You definitely expand that circle. That's the best advice.
So the second question is, you answered that one as well. You said I think 10% as far as to be able to have to qualify, you at least need to be 10% disabled veteran.
Yeah.
So that covered my second question. But my third question is there a hierarchy in disabled veteran percentage? Just say at one person's 100%, another person's 10%. Do they get a contract before? Do 100% get a contract before 10%?
No. So, it's a fantastic question, especially for those online who are watching. That's a great question. At the end of the day, as long as you meet the criteria for the certification, you're certified, and then it's you're looking at fulfilling solicitations from those that are certified, especially if they're going through like a DVB option. So don't worry if it's 100, don't worry if it's 10. You're just looking at getting that certification and being recognized as being certified. So I do want to note, if you are looking for more criteria on the DVBE certification, definitely check out our level 1 webinar. We have more information on the specifics on that, or definitely check out dgs.ca.gov/PD-OSDS. All right.
All right. Well, hey, Josh, thanks again. I really appreciate it.
Anytime, man.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. Let me get out of your way.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, everyone, that concludes, but I do have a few things I want to wrap up before we stop. One, I want to thank Josh. I want to thank Darren and Stephanie. And I also want to thank Jane. Like I said before, it is important, and I think Josh brought it up, Booster Circle, rising tide. The ships rise with the tide. All ships rise with the tide. I like the way you put that, Josh. The point in that is networking, pulling things together, utilizing your resources to grow, and not being arrogant or not being too modest to ask for help. The point in handshakes, not handouts, is highly important. A lot of us have A-type personalities. A lot of us want to do it ourselves, and we don't want handouts. So I really appreciate that concept of handshakes, not handouts. And that also boosts, the more handshakes you have, the more you boost and grow your network. I want to thank the ARC again. I understand the ARC. It's understood that the ARC will sponsor anyone who's willing and looking to have demonstrating skin in the game. So I truly appreciate that, and thank you, Al. Here's the notes for you. All of the information that you've seen here, you can find online in the webinar Entrepreneurship Training Series. You can find it on demand at www.o4tv.tv. And again, I say thank you again, everyone. I appreciate your time. Have a good day.